Welcome to Awakenings in Real Life, where we tell inspiring stories of transformation, meaning, and hope. While we typically think of an awakening as a getting up or something religious or spiritual in nature, it's also a recognition, realization, or awareness of something. We're going to share stories of people triumphing over loss, illness, addiction, trauma, bullying, near-death experience, and more. Please enjoy. This is Dan Cohen, and welcome to Awakenings in Real Life. Our guest today is Sherman Niamehr. Sherman, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on your show, Dan.
Great. It's my pleasure, and I can't wait to get into it. I'm going to give the audience a little of your background, okay?
Sure.
Sherman Niamehr is an Italian-born American, former stockbroker, and memoir author whose life took a dramatic turn during a period of unexpected confinement at an IRGC military base in Iran. And IRGC stands for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. His quiet act of inner defiance, refusing to march on the American and Israeli flags, led to brutal interrogations and a spiritual reckoning that shaped the rest of his life. His book, called In the Shadows of the IRGC, is one of resilience, awakening, and the search for inner freedom amidst systems of fear and indoctrination. He's now a family man building his life in the U.S., and he shares his story to encourage clarity and freedom of thought in the face of oppression. So, Sherman, the question I begin with to all my guests are, because that's what the podcast is about, is what was your awakening in real life?
So the awakening, Dan, my awakening wasn't a single lightning bolt moment.
Okay.
It basically started the very first day on the base. That morning, I discovered that every day, twice a day, we were basically expected to march in formation and step, march onto two massive flags painted on the ground. And the flags were the U.S. and Israeli flags. And at first, I thought might be some kind of like a one-time exercise. But when I realized this was going to happen every morning and every evening for the next 2 years. So something inside me shifted. In that instant,
That was an
I
awakening.
knew. What was that?
That was an awakening moment.
Yeah, I just knew, Dan, I couldn't do it. I broke formation basically in that moment and walked around the flag instead. And basically, just a few seconds later, I was hit from behind and the interrogations began. But
All right, we're gonna
before
get
that,
in. Sure, we're gonna get
even
into that.
okay,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, but I think it's
go ahead.
important that you give us your background from where you started, how you ended up in Iran in the IRGC.
Okay, so basically, what happened is at the age of 17, I was a uh, junior or senior in high school in Canyon Hill. We said so. We immigrated to the U.S. in the 80s from Italy. I was born in Italy. We immigrated here to. So I was going to high school here in Anaheim Hills. I was attending Canyon High School. What happened is at the age of 17, I had to go to Iran. I had to go to Iran, and
Now, your
basically,
parents are Iranian. Your parents are
yeah,
Iranian.
yeah. Both my parents are Iranian, but my father's Jewish, and his family's ultra, 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 ultra Um,
Orthodox?
Orthodox Jewish. No, Orthodox. Orthodox Jewish. They're highly,
Right.
highly. So, um, my father's family is, um, Jewish, and my mom is a Muslim Iranian.
Okay.
So, if that's what you were, what were you asking exactly?
No, so you at 17, you're in the United States from Italy. You're half Jewish and half Muslim. And
Mhm.
why did you have to go to Iran?
So I wasn't in Italy. As I explained, we immigrated from Italy when I was about 10, 12 years old. And we immigrated straight to um, America in Anaheim Hills, where I went to Canyon High School. Now, Canyon High School, my junior senior year, I had to go to Iran. There were some land discrepancies, getting land ownership, and so my parents had to go there for a little while. Now, my brother, 5 years prior, because I'm born in 1975, he's 1968. He's 7 years older than me. So 4 or 5 years prior to me going there, before I can get when I was 17, my father had paid a lot of money to get um, his financial exemption from the military. He bought it. He didn't have to serve. When I went there, I was looking to come, I was about to finish high school, and I go to Iran to go and come back and finish my studies back in America. When I went there, like I said, because of my brother acquiring the financial exemption, I thought it was going to happen. I thought I was going to have the same opportunity to pay to get a financial exemption. However, the year that I got there, the parliament passed a resolution that nobody born 1968 and younger qualifies for this financial exemption anymore. It's mandatory military.
How'd you end up in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard? I'm assuming there were other branches of the army, and explain what that IRGC is and how it's different.
Mhm. So there's a few branches. Um, what they do is they gather all the people that are ripe for starting to serve, like 18 years old. They gather them in this huge, huge uh, field, and they start to ask different soldiers, what's your what are your skills? What are your accomplishments? Do you know how to sew? Do you know how to speak English? You have to have a skill. If you have a skill, we will directly either to the IRGC, to Artish. Artish is that, it's a much less radical branch of, you know, government, so-called government. But there's the Air Force, which and the Naval Force, which is the most ridiculous. They don't have an Air Force.
Okay.
They do not have an Air Force. They do not have naval capacities. I mean, so basically,
And your skill
uh,
was?
and so yeah, so basically, when they asked me what my skill was, it was to I knew how to speak English. I knew how to speak English, right? So the first day when they gather thousands of soldiers, like sheep
Right.
and goat, just to see what they can contribute for free. What do you know? You know how to cook. Um, you know how to teach English or whatever the case is. In my I knew how to speak English. Obviously, that was the only thing that I know how to do.
What's the mission of the IRGC?
The ultimate mission.
They're an elite unit in the Iranian army. Is that how you
Oh yeah,
describe it?
they're not an elite. They're the most elite. Um, they're the most elite, and are basically they have the Quds forces that train Lebanese fighters. The Quds forces is a branch of the IRGC, but the Quds forces, they tend to go out and you know conspire with the Axis of Resistance and Lebanon and Hezbollah. They do their you know outside um, with Al Qaeda, but the IRGC is basically more localized elites that
They're
in
training
turn.
Hamas and Hezbollah
Oh
fighters.
yeah, both of them. The IRGC, the IRGC fully, uh, fully 100% has funded them in every possible way. Um, and yeah, they've funded them up to this date. There's a
So
lot
you
of things. There's a lot of things that because my family's still there, just especially with the recent weeks and months where the Iranian government just, you know, I just made an act of defiance, went around the flag and showed them that listen, you're not gonna own me,
so let's
right?
get into
That's
that.
what. Okay.
Let's get into that. And we'll talk about the current climate towards the end of the podcast. You made your act of defiance not to walk over or stomp over the Israeli and the U.S. flags.
Mhm.
And I think you said the minute it happened, someone knocked into you, or what happened now that you had this act of defiance, which I'm sure, I don't know if any other soldier ever did that, but because your unique background, you
Yeah.
decided to do. So what happened from there?
So after I walked around the flags, um, they hit me from behind, right? I mean, to go around a U.S. and Israeli flag is treason, basically, in their eyes. And I knew that. I wanted to cause as much chaos as possible. Um, and the chaos, you know, it was my show of, it was my way of showing them you can put me in uniform, but you can't make me betray my conscience. That choice became a line in the sand the moment I decided I would not be owned. So
But at a
they,
risk to your life, no? At a risk to you didn't know the consequences
I
of
did
that
know the
act.
consequences. I did know, but um, it's not really about the consequences. It's it just from day one, basically, I did already felt like I stood out. Even my name was treated like contraband. They couldn't even pronounce my name, and I could sense they didn't see me as one of them. So the flagging incident just confirmed their suspicions, and gave them a reason to come after me sooner rather than later. That act of defiance made marked me from the beginning. So the interrogations, the punishment, the constant pressure, all of it was tied to that one choice.
So what did the interrogations? What were they trying? They were trying to figure out why you were there. Did they think you? What were they so afraid of? Did they think you
So
were a U.S. spy or
no,
what?
I think it was less than being accused of an American spy or an Israeli spy. Um, However, they weren't afraid of that. They just didn't understand why I was there in the IRGC. They just couldn't comprehend at that age coming there. So they falsely accused me of espionage, if that's what you're asking.
Well, that's spying, right?
Yeah, they falsely accused me of espionage, which was far from the truth. Um, I was just a high school student and got dragged into. I still don't know. If you ask me anything about Muslims or the uh, the uh, the religion, I can't even. I can hardly speak Farsi. Never mind their religion and their um. You know,
Right. So you didn't speak the religion. So part of their skepticism in the beginning is you had a name Sherman, right, which they never heard of,
that's
and
they
didn't they?
couldn't pronounce it. That's where it started.
And
That's
didn't it
where.
one? Yeah, go ahead.
No, no,
That's
you
where it
go ahead.
started. And
That's
didn't
where.
they? Right. Didn't you also say that they asked you what your religion was, and that raised the red flag as well?
So my religion, it's not something that I could have tried to blend in and say, listen, I'm Muslim. Alhamdulillah. I am really bad at that. They actually, when they found out that I eat pork, that all my beliefs are because these people, it wasn't, it wasn't just this, their secret service. They were trying to figure out why I was there, but they didn't really question about my religion because they knew I wasn't Muslim. They knew. In the IRGC, it's the most radical branch. As you know, they're a terrorist organization, by the way, rightfully
Right.
so. It is the most radical branch, and as you know, they control, fund,
Hmm.
axis of resistance, and
Sure.
I don't want to get
So
into
you
that, but
so you couldn't at that point say I am Muslim because you were half Muslim because you wouldn't have done the prayers and the things necessary to show them like the other soldiers that you're active in the religion. Am I right?
yeah, they banned me 25 meters away from every mosque on the IRGC base in Tehran. Mhm.
What happened then? Your experience changed. They explain what happened after they figured out that
Yeah,
whatever, yeah, after they realized that you weren't a spy and that they weren't. What happened then?
that took 3 years for them because they wanted to, you know, they wanted the worst for me. They wanted me to have the worst time. They would make fun of me often,
Right.
with cursing at me, with using, strong, like they would slap me. What the hell were you thinking of coming to Iran? We don't want you here. We don't like you here. You're liars.
Right.
You're occupiers,
Hmm.
right? So,
But at a certain point, you told me earlier, after enough interrogation and confinement, they realized your story was what your story was, right?
yeah.
And didn't somebody befriend you on the as part of the IRGC or
No,
later? And No?
Befriend? No. Help me? Yes.
Okay, what not befriend, help you. How did that
The
occur?
judicial, the judicial, are you
Right.
talking about the judicial person that came and got
Yeah.
English lessons,
Talk
right?
about
You
that
read
a
it.
little.
Yeah. So I was still, it was like the second year. I was still coming and going into interrogations. But the last 7 or 8 months, I was in there consistently. The last 7 or 8 months that eventually I got the signature um, for my freedom. I got my signature and my completion card.
Right.
Right. So what happened is I was this judicial judge. I'm obviously not going to name him in Iran.
Hmm.
This judicial judge was the highest ranking judge that people for treason, for everything, not only treason, like smaller infractions as well, like skipping a day. He was a judicial judge that decided what would happen to you. So when he heard my case the first time, now you got to understand, in Iran, there are very high, um, very high, um, very high uh, people that with high rankings, like this judicial judge, that actually believe in helping people, not people American people. And I'll tell you why. When he heard my
Please.
story, what was that?
I said, please share.
Yeah. When when I was in military confinement, it was my case and he was the judge and he started asking me questions. And I saw these questions he'd ask the clerk and everyone to leave the room. He was talking to me one on one. Why did you come here? I explained to him. Then I explained all those interrogations within those year and a half. So what happened is let me take a step back. While I was locked up for about 5 or 6 weeks, and my mom had no clue. She was about to have a heart attack 5 times, and my parents are very different. They are so overprotective and scared because they knew I was so naive. I'm just a naive person in regards to religion and all these types of bureaucracies in Iran. So she came to the, I was gone for 5 weeks. She used to come to the military base. A woman, which is, this is Sharia law in Iran, right? You
Right.
can't, you can't be a woman and go to a military IRGC installation site. But she did. She was there. She was there. She came to the military station in the freezing snow and rain to tell them, you're wasting your time. My son is nothing what you think at all. So, I mean, she came there for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and this judicial judge had the sympathy and started talking to my mom. And this judicial judge was a very high ranking judicial judge. He was the one that gave me all the signatures needed for me to finally get my freedom after the second and 2.5, 3 years. Mind you, service there is for 2 years. I had 2.5, close to 3 years because, um, you know, they just didn't like me. They kept uh, adding days for me to serve so they can have more time to see who I am. So this judicial judge would see my mom come into this, come into these at the Imam Hussein, where I was stationed, the IRGC installation. She would come there, and this, uh, this, this judicial judge felt sorry for her. He felt sorry for her, and at the end, he said, "Look, I don't believe your son is a danger to our national security. Unlike the way, Hifazatullah and, the IRGC think, I don't think so." And he said, "I will be risking myself doing this, but if you, if your son agrees, if Sherman agrees to give me private English lessons at home, that I would sign off on, because he was the final signature I needed in order to get. Remember that completion card I sent you?
Right, right.
He's the reason why I got it. Others, you had to get 40 signatures. He was the only one, and if he wouldn't have signed up on it, I would have served another year. So I would have served 3 or 4 years.
So once they got over the fact that who you thought they were, they weren't. But you were able to get some insight, correct me if I'm wrong, into the workings of the IRGC. Was it through this judge, or how did you start to get some real understandings of how they worked and what their mission was?
I would see that, I would witness every single room I would go into, either blindfold, because it would sometimes blindfold me in the really secret, IRGC installations, and there were some, but I would see, you know their propaganda, and this was mid 90s. Even back then, the amount of propaganda against Americans, the West, and Israel, especially anti-Semitism, which I'm so sad about, but especially anti-Semitism. What I saw there was the Palestinian cause was the only thing, even above hating the Jews and the Americans. The Palestinian cause was their only way of survival. The amount of money, we're the second or third largest gas producer. All the money, the IRGC, and and you can see the amount of money. People are living in poverty, obviously, in Iran, and the only reason is because they are helping Gaza. They are helping Gaza with these. They spend a lot of money there to train. Um, they train a lot there. But what was your
Well,
second question?
their mission is the destruction of Israel.
What is it, destruction?
Their mission, Hamas's mission, is the destruction of the of Israel. That's their
It's not
stated
Hamas.
mission.
It's not Hamas. Hamas is just a political cause that's
Okay.
been politically used as pawns for years. Now, in 1979, after the Ayatollah came in power, you know, he saw he saw um, a lot more damage he can do because there the propaganda war
Mm-hmm.
is a propaganda war right now, and knowing Iran, the most thing I found out, the most concrete evidence is even back then, but I would obviously, because what I went through, I would constantly monitor what they did in the Middle East, the IRGC. And I'm very good at pinpointing it exactly what their motivation is. Their motivation is to
Annihilate.
annihilate, annihilate the West and Israel. That's their ultimate. That is the ultimate. These kids, whether it's in Palestine, whether it's in Iran, they indoctrinate these kids at the age of 6, 5, and they teach these kids at a very young age. Not so bad in Iran because they want to keep their kids and everything as far as possible. But in Gaza, they literally indoctrinate to hate Americans, the West, and Israel. And if you're a martyr if you kill any Americans. So that's never going to change. That's rooted inside of
Right.
Palestinian people, and it kills me.
Sherman, just to summarize, tell us what your message is to people in the listening audience, and where can someone get your book, and find you, and that. So first, tell us what's your overall message to the listening and viewing audience.
Um, what do you mean, like the Western misunderstanding?
What
Um,
do you want to share about your experience? I see you wrote a book about it.
yeah. Um, so I think this is a question about Western misunderstanding that I'm gonna answer. Is that okay?
Okay, sure.
I think what many people in the West don't realize is just how total the control is. It's not about politics or military power. Um, it reaches into the smallest details of life, like music, clothes, or even the way you walk in formation. Everything is monitored. And even tiny choices can be treated like basically rebellion. So from the outside, it can look black and white. Just follow the rules and you'll be fine. But the truth is, the rules are designated to break you. Um, they force you to act against your conscience until you no longer recognize yourself. That's the real danger, in my opinion. Um, it's not the fear of punishment, but the slow erosion of your own identity. So, what I want people in the West to understand is that resistance isn't always loud or public. Sometimes it's hidden in the smallest acts of honesty, like refusing to step on a flag or daring to listen to music. Um,
Gotcha.
those quiet choices are what keep your humanity alive.
And what's the status of your book right now?
It's on it is on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
It's only on Amazon, and yeah, you can find it there. It's under in the shadows of the IRGC.
Yes,
Um,
I've read it myself. It's a very fascinating read, and I urge the people out there to get it and to hear Sherman's story.
yeah, it's not really the full picture. Obviously, there were tons
I know
of
the
tons.
story didn't end with you getting out, and we'll save that for another day because you've had quite a bit of other experiences
Yeah,
since then. But I want to really thank you, Sherman, for being on the podcast today. Again, I think you
no,
have a unique perspective on what happened
thank
to you and some of the
you.
events today because you were in the IRGC. So I thank you for your courage to share your story
Of
and your
course,
thoughts about what's going on today.
of course, it was my pleasure. It was my pleasure.
Thank you, Sherman. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
Thank you for listening or watching this episode. If you enjoyed our guest, please go to our website, awakeningsinreallife.com, where our guest shares a story different than their awakening. It's really very interesting. We also have bonus episodes where another individual tells their awakening story. Please also check out my book, Awakenings in Real Life, where I tell the story of my dad's awakening from his dementia and the message he sends that he still lives and appreciates life. It's available on Amazon and also tells other family stories. If you know of someone who wants to be a guest on the show and has an awakening, please email me at info@awakeningsinreallife.com. We're also available on social media. Please tune in to our next episode where we share another remarkable awakening story. Finally, I want to thank Jay Belsky of Flawed Media of Rockville Center, New York, who did such a great job recording this episode.